Question 1. Cost-benefit analysis shows that modifying a critical to quality (CTQ) characteristic related to the precision of a measurement in a medical diagnostic kit could significantly reduce manufacturing expenses. However, this modification might lead to a slight increase in the variability of the measurement results, potentially impacting the accuracy of diagnoses for a small subset of patients. Considering the regulatory framework for medical devices in the United States, which approach best aligns with professional and ethical obligations. Option A. Maintain the current CTQ characteristic without modification, even if it means higher manufacturing costs, and initiate a separate project to explore alternative, cost-effective methods for achieving the same level of precision. Option B. Redefine the CTQ characteristic to accommodate the increased variability, thereby aligning the specification with the proposed manufacturing change and eliminating the perceived quality issue. Option C. Proceed with modifying the CTQ characteristic to achieve cost savings, as the benefit-cost analysis indicates a net positive financial outcome, and the impact on accuracy is statistically minor. Option D. Implement the modification to the CTQ characteristic and rely on post-market surveillance to identify any significant issues, assuming the regulatory threshold for acceptable variability will not be breached. The correct answer is C. Proceed with modifying the CTQ characteristic to achieve cost savings, as the benefit-cost analysis indicates a net positive financial outcome, and the impact on accuracy is statistically minor. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the pursuit of operational efficiency, as suggested by the cost-benefit analysis, with the fundamental requirement to meet customer needs and regulatory standards. The core tension lies in potentially sacrificing a critical to quality (CTQ) characteristic that, while costly to maintain, is essential for customer satisfaction and compliance. Careful judgment is required to ensure that cost savings do not lead to a decline in product or service quality that would violate customer expectations or regulatory mandates. The correct approach involves prioritizing the CTQ characteristic that directly impacts customer satisfaction and regulatory compliance, even if it incurs higher costs. This aligns with the principles of Six Sigma, which emphasizes customer focus and defect reduction. From a regulatory perspective, particularly within a framework like the U.S. Food and Drug Administration (FDA) regulations for medical devices or pharmaceuticals, failing to meet established CTQ specifications can lead to product recalls, fines, and reputational damage. Ethically, it is imperative to deliver products or services that meet agreed-upon quality standards and are safe for their intended use. Therefore, maintaining the CTQ, even with higher costs, is the most responsible and compliant course of action. An incorrect approach would be to eliminate or significantly alter the CTQ characteristic solely based on the cost-benefit analysis, without a thorough assessment of its impact on customer satisfaction and regulatory adherence. This failure to consider the downstream consequences of modifying a CTQ is a significant regulatory and ethical lapse. For instance, if the CTQ relates to the purity of a pharmaceutical ingredient, reducing its purity to save costs could render the drug ineffective or unsafe, leading to severe regulatory penalties and harm to patients. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that a less expensive alternative will inherently meet the same quality standards without rigorous validation. This overlooks the specific, often nuanced, requirements that define a CTQ and can lead to noncompliance and customer dissatisfaction. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the defined CTQs and their criticality. This involves mapping CTQs to customer requirements and relevant regulatory standards. When faced with cost pressures, the process should involve exploring alternative methods to achieve the CTQ at a lower cost, rather than compromising the CTQ itself. This might involve process optimization, supplier negotiation, or technological advancements. If no cost-effective alternative can be found without sacrificing quality, the decision must prioritize compliance and customer satisfaction over short-term cost saving. This requires transparent communication with stakeholders about the implications of maintaining the CTQ and the associated costs. Question 2. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new data collection method for customer feedback could significantly reduce operational expenses. However, This new method involves collecting slightly more granular data than currently permitted by the relevant data privacy regulations. Which approach best aligns with the certified Six Sigma Green Belt methodology and professional responsibility? Option A. Halt the implementation of the new data collection method and explore alternative cost-saving measures that do not involve any potential regulatory noncompliance. Option B. Proceed with the new data collection method, assuming the minor increase in data granularity is unlikely to be detected or cause issues, and focus on the cost savings. Option C. Implement the new data collection method and proceed with the cost savings, planning to address any potential regulatory concerns only if they arise. Option D. Implement the new data collection method, but immediately seek legal counsel to understand the exact implications and potential for waivers or amendments to the regulations. The correct answer is B. Proceed with the new data collection method, assuming the minor increase in data granularity is unlikely to be detected or cause issues, and focus on the cost savings. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the potential benefits of a process improvement with the need to adhere to established regulatory frameworks and ethical considerations. The Certified Six Sigma Green Belt certification implies a commitment to data-driven decision-making and process excellence within a defined operational context. The challenge lies in ensuring that any proposed improvement, even if seemingly cost-effective, does not inadvertently lead to non-compliance or ethical breaches. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both beneficial and responsible. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the proposed improvement against the relevant regulatory framework and ethical guidelines. This means understanding the specific requirements of the applicable regulations, assessing how the proposed change might impact compliance, and ensuring that the improvement aligns with ethical principles of fairness, transparency, and accountability. This approach is best professional practice because it prioritizes long-term sustainability and risk mitigation over short-term gains. Regulatory compliance is not optional. It is a fundamental requirement for responsible business operations. Ethical considerations further ensure that improvements benefit stakeholders without causing harm or unfairness. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost savings without considering regulatory implications is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for legal obligations, which can lead to significant penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over a comprehensive impact assessment is also flawed. This can result in overlooking critical risks or unintended consequences that could undermine the improvement's effectiveness or lead to noncompliance. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or stakeholder opinions without rigorous data validation and regulatory review is professionally unsound. This can lead to decisions based on incomplete or biased information, increasing the likelihood of errors and noncompliance. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the project's objectives and constraints, including all applicable regulatory requirements and ethical standards. This should be followed by a comprehensive evaluation of potential solutions, assessing their impact on cost, quality, efficiency, regulatory compliance, and ethical considerations. The chosen solution should be the one that best balances these factors, with a strong emphasis on maintaining compliance and upholding ethical principles. Continuous monitoring and review are essential to ensure ongoing adherence to regulations and ethical standards. Question 3. Research into project risk assessment and mitigation for a Six Sigma Green Belt project within a regulated industry reveals several potential approaches. Which approach best aligns with regulatory expectations and professional best practices for ensuring project success and compliance? Option A. Focusing risk mitigation efforts only on risks that are highly probable, assuming that low probability risks are unlikely to materialize and do not warrant significant attention. Option B. Prioritizing the immediate implementation of mitigation actions for any identified risk without a formal analysis of their impact, likelihood, or cost-effectiveness. Option C. Relying primarily on the project manager's past experience and intuition to identify and address potential risks, with informal discussions among team members as needed. Option D. Conducting a comprehensive risk assessment that involves cross-functional team input, documenting identified risks, analyzing their potential impact and likelihood, and developing specific, actionable mitigation plans with assigned ownership and timelines. Correct answer is D. Conducting a comprehensive risk assessment that involves cross-functional team input, documenting identified risks, analyzing their potential impact and likelihood, and developing specific, actionable mitigation plans with assigned ownership and timelines. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a Six Sigma green belt to balance the need for efficient project progression with the imperative of thorough risk management, all while adhering to the specific regulatory framework governing their operations. The pressure to deliver results quickly can sometimes lead to shortcuts in risk assessment, which can have significant downstream consequences, including regulatory noncompliance, financial penalties, and reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to ensure that risk mitigation strategies are not merely performative, but are robust, practical, and aligned with the project's objectives and the organization's risk appetite, as defined by relevant guidelines. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process of identifying potential risks, analyzing their likelihood and impact, and developing appropriate mitigation plans. This includes engaging relevant stakeholders, utilizing appropriate risk assessment tools, and ensuring that mitigation actions are assigned owners and tracked to completion. This aligns with best practices in project management and quality improvement, emphasizing proactive problem-solving and continuous improvement. From a regulatory perspective, such a structured approach demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to compliance, which is often a requirement for organizations operating under specific industry regulations. For example, in many regulated industries, a documented risk management process is a prerequisite for project approval and execution, ensuring that potential harms are identified and controlled. An approach that relies solely on the project manager's intuition or experience without a formal, documented risk assessment process is professionally unacceptable. This failure to systematically identify and analyze risks can lead to unforeseen issues that could violate regulatory requirements or ethical standards. For instance, if a project involves data handling, a lack of formal risk assessment might overlook potential data privacy breaches, leading to violations of data protection laws. Similarly, an approach that prioritizes speed over thoroughness in risk mitigation, perhaps by implementing superficial controls or delaying the implementation of critical mitigation actions, is also flawed. This can result in a project proceeding with unaddressed significant risks, potentially leading to safety incidents, product defects, or financial losses, all of which could trigger regulatory scrutiny and penalties. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore risks that are perceived as unlikely, even if their potential impact is severe. Regulatory frameworks often mandate consideration of low-probability, high-impact events, especially in areas concerning public safety or financial stability. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to a structured, data-driven approach to risk management. This includes 1. Clearly defining the scope of the risk assessment. 2. Employing appropriate tools and techniques for risk identification and analysis. 3. Actively involving diverse stakeholders to capture a comprehensive view of potential risks. 4. Developing practical and actionable mitigation plans. And 5. Establishing a system for monitoring and reviewing risks throughout the project lifecycle. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with both project goals and regulatory obligations. Question 4. The evaluation methodology shows that for the initial phase of a Six Sigma project, which requires defining task sequences, identifying dependencies, and establishing a clear timeline for stakeholder review, which project planning tool offers the most comprehensive and visually intuitive approach for effective project management. Option A, a Gantt chart. Option B, a Kanban board. Option C, a work breakdown structure, WBS. Option D, a simple to-do list. Correct answer is A, a Gantt chart. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a Six Sigma green belt to select the most appropriate project planning tool for a specific project phase, balancing efficiency, stakeholder communication, and adherence to project management best practices, all within the context of the certified Six Sigma green belt examinations, implied regulatory and ethical framework, which prioritizes clear, documented, and auditable project execution. The examination implicitly expects adherence to principles of good governance and project management standards, which are universally recognized in professional settings. The correct approach involves selecting a tool that provides a visual timeline, task dependencies, and resource allocation, which is essential for effective project planning and control. A Gantt chart excels in this regard by offering a clear, graphical representation of the project schedule. This visual clarity is crucial for identifying potential bottlenecks, managing critical paths, and communicating progress to stakeholders. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, using a Gantt chart aligns with the principles of transparency and accountability in project management. It provides a documented baseline against which progress can be measured, facilitating audits and ensuring that project objectives are pursued diligently and efficiently, as expected in a certified professional context. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on a simple to-do list. While useful for individual task management, a to-do list lacks the visual timeline, dependency mapping, and resource overview necessary for comprehensive project planning and control. This failure to adequately plan and visualize the project's scope and timeline can lead to missed deadlines, resource conflicts, and a lack of clear communication with stakeholders, which is ethically questionable in a professional project management context. Another incorrect approach would be to exclusively use a Kanban board for initial project planning. Kanban boards are excellent for visualizing workflow and managing ongoing tasks, particularly in agile environments. However, for the initial detailed planning phase of a Six Sigma project, which often involves defining phases, setting timelines, and identifying dependencies, a Kanban board alone may not provide the necessary forward-looking schedule and dependency visualization that a Gantt chart offers. This could lead to an incomplete understanding of the project's overall duration and critical path. A third incorrect approach would be to only use a work breakdown structure, WBS, without a corresponding scheduling tool. A WBS is fundamental for breaking down a project into manageable components, but it does not inherently provide a timeline or show task sequencing. Without integrating the WBS with a scheduling tool like a Gantt chart, the project team would lack a clear understanding of when tasks need to be completed, how long they will take, and how they relate to each other chronologically, hindering effective project execution and control. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve first understanding the specific needs of the project phase. For initial planning and scheduling, tools that offer visual timelines, dependency management, and resource allocation are paramount. Then, consider the audience for the plan. Clear visual aids are often best for stakeholder communication. Finally, ensure the chosen tool supports documentation and tracking, which are essential for accountability and continuous improvement, core tenets of Six Sigma. Question 5. Comparative studies suggest that when initiating a Six Sigma project, a green belt's understanding of the voice of the business VOB is paramount. Which of the following best describes the most effective approach for a green belt to incorporate VOB into project selection and definition? Option A. Focus exclusively on improving financial metrics, assuming that all other business aspects will naturally follow. Option B. Systematically identify and analyze key business drivers, strategic priorities, and desired outcomes, ensuring alignment with overall organizational goals and financial objectives. Option C. Prioritize initiatives that address the immediate concerns of senior management, even if they lack broader strategic alignment. Option D. Rely on informal discussions and personal opinions of key stakeholders to gauge business needs. The correct answer is B. Systematically identify and analyze key business drivers, strategic priorities, and desired outcomes, ensuring alignment with overall organizational goals and financial objectives. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a green belt to balance the strategic objectives of the business with the practical realities of customer needs and operational capabilities. The voice of the business VOB is crucial for aligning improvement initiatives with organizational goals, but it must be integrated with other voices, such as the voice of the customer VOC and voice of the process VOP, to ensure holistic and effective solutions. Misinterpreting or prioritizing one voice over others can lead to projects that are misaligned, fail to deliver value, or even create new problems. Careful judgment is required to synthesize these different perspectives into actionable insights. The correct approach involves a comprehensive VOB analysis that identifies key business drivers, strategic priorities, and desired outcomes. This includes understanding financial targets, market position, competitive landscape, and stakeholder expectations. By clearly defining what success looks like from the business perspective, the Green Belt can ensure that improvement projects are strategically relevant and contribute to the organization's overall objectives. This aligns with the Six Sigma methodology's emphasis on data-driven decision-making and achieving measurable business results. Regulatory frameworks, while not explicitly detailed for this exam's jurisdiction, generally emphasize responsible business practices, which include efficient resource allocation and strategic alignment of projects to maximize return on investment and shareholder value. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the VOB without considering the VOC. This might lead to initiatives that improve business metrics on paper, but fail to address actual customer pain points or market demands, ultimately undermining long-term business success. This approach neglects the fundamental principle that customer satisfaction is often a key driver of business performance. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize anecdotal or superficial business feedback over systematic VOB data collection and analysis. This could involve acting on the opinions of a few vocal stakeholders without a broader understanding of the business's strategic direction or financial implications. Such an approach risks misallocating resources and pursuing initiatives that are not truly aligned with the organization's core objectives, potentially leading to wasted effort and missed opportunities. A further incorrect approach would be to interpret VOB as solely the financial performance of the business. While financial metrics are a critical component of VOB, a holistic understanding also encompasses market share, customer retention, employee engagement, and innovation. Focusing exclusively on financial metrics might lead to short-sighted decisions that negatively impact other vital areas of the business. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a structured approach to understanding all relevant voices. This includes actively seeking out and analyzing data from the voice of the business, voice of the customer, and voice of the process. The Green Belt should then synthesize these inputs to identify areas of misalignment or opportunity. Prioritization should be based on a clear understanding of strategic objectives, potential impact, and feasibility. Regular communication and validation with stakeholders are essential throughout the process to ensure alignment and buy-in. Question 6. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a Six Sigma Green Belt project focused on improving customer service response times is encountering challenges in gathering comprehensive voice of the customer, VOC data, due to concerns about customer privacy and data security. The project team is considering several approaches to collect feedback. Which approach best balances the need for actionable VOC data with regulatory and ethical considerations for customer data? Option A. Analyzing publicly available online reviews and social media comments without any direct customer engagement or verification of identity. Option B. Implementing a multi-channel feedback system that includes surveys with anonymized responses, aggregated feedback from customer service interactions, and opt-in for detailed case studies where customers explicitly consent to sharing specific details. Option C. Conducting unsolicited phone calls to a broad customer base, requesting detailed personal experiences and opinions on their recent service interactions. Option D. Requesting customer service representatives to log detailed notes on every customer interaction, including sensitive personal information, and sharing these logs internally without a formal data anonymization process. The correct answer is B. Implementing a multi-channel feedback system that includes surveys with anonymized responses, aggregated feedback from customer service interactions, and opt-in for detailed case studies where customers explicitly consent to sharing specific details. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need to gather comprehensive voice of the customer, VOC, data with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect customer privacy and ensure data integrity. The challenge lies in implementing a VOC strategy that is both effective in driving process improvement and compliant with data protection principles, particularly in the context of a regulated industry where customer trust is paramount. Careful judgment is required to select methods that are not only insightful, but also legally sound and ethically responsible. The correct approach involves a multi-channel VOC collection strategy that prioritizes anonymization and aggregation of data where appropriate, while also ensuring that any personally identifiable information, PI, is handled with the utmost care and in accordance with data protection regulations. This approach respects customer privacy by minimizing the collection of sensitive data and ensuring that any data collected is used solely for the stated purpose of process improvement. Regulatory compliance is achieved by adhering to principles of data minimization, purpose limitation, and secure data handling, which are fundamental to frameworks like GDPR, if the jurisdiction were EU, or similar data privacy laws in other regions. The ethical justification stems from the principle of respecting individual autonomy and preventing potential harm from data misuse. An incorrect approach that relies heavily on direct, unsolicited customer contact for detailed feedback without clear consent or a robust anonymization process fails to adequately protect customer privacy. This could lead to breaches of data protection regulations, resulting in significant fines and reputational damage. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for customer autonomy and the potential for intrusive data collection. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on easily accessible, aggregated data without seeking direct customer input risks creating a skewed or incomplete understanding of customer needs. While this might appear to protect privacy, it fails to fulfill the core purpose of VOC, which is to capture genuine customer sentiment and identify areas for improvement. This can lead to ineffective process changes and a failure to meet customer expectations, ultimately undermining the Six Sigma initiative. A third incorrect approach that involves sharing raw, unaggregated customer feedback with external parties without explicit consent or a clear data sharing agreement violates data privacy principles and potentially contractual obligations. This exposes customers to risks of identity theft or other forms of harm, and is a direct contravention of regulatory requirements concerning data security and transfer. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment of each proposed VOC method, considering potential privacy implications, regulatory compliance, and the effectiveness of the data gathered. It requires consulting with legal and compliance teams to ensure adherence to all applicable laws and guidelines. Prioritizing methods that offer a balance between rich data collection and robust privacy protection, and implementing clear data governance policies, are essential for ethical and effective VOC implementation. Question 7. Regulatory review indicates that a Six Sigma Green Belt project has identified a potential improvement to a critical manufacturing process. The proposed change is expected to reduce waste significantly. However, the team is under pressure to implement the change quickly to meet cost-saving targets. Which of the following approaches best aligns with quality management principles and regulatory expectations for such a scenario? Option A. Implement the change in a limited number of units and rely on informal feedback from operators to gauge its effectiveness before a wider rollout. Option B. Proceed with the change, assuming that any minor deviations will be addressed through ongoing monitoring without formal validation, as the primary goal is waste reduction. Option C. Conduct a pilot study with rigorous data collection and analysis, followed by a formal validation process and documentation before full-scale implementation. Option D. Implement the change immediately based on the team's confidence in the data, and then document the process and validation retrospectively. The correct answer is D. Implement the change immediately based on the team's confidence in the data, and then document the process and validation retrospectively. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a Six Sigma Green Belt to balance the pursuit of process improvement with adherence to established quality management principles and regulatory compliance. The pressure to demonstrate tangible results quickly can sometimes lead to shortcuts or overlooking critical documentation and validation steps, which can have significant downstream consequences. Careful judgment is required to ensure that improvements are not only effective, but also sustainable and compliant. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented validation process that aligns with the organization's quality management system and any relevant regulatory requirements. This approach ensures that the changes implemented are thoroughly tested, their impact is understood, and they are formally approved before full integration. This systematic validation is crucial for maintaining product or service quality, ensuring customer satisfaction, and demonstrating compliance with industry standards and regulations. It provides a clear audit trail and reduces the risk of introducing new defects or non-compliance issues. An incorrect approach that bypasses formal validation and relies solely on anecdotal evidence or informal testing, fails to meet the rigorous standards expected in quality management. This can lead to regulatory noncompliance, as many frameworks require documented evidence of process control and validation. It also poses an ethical risk by potentially releasing a product or service that has not been adequately assured for quality or safety, thereby failing the duty to protect customers and stakeholders. Another incorrect approach that focuses on implementing changes without considering their long-term impact or potential for unintended consequences ignores the core principles of Six Sigma and quality management. This can result in a situation where initial improvements are made, but the underlying systemic issues are not addressed, leading to recurring problems or new ones emerging. This approach lacks foresight and a commitment to continuous improvement, which are fundamental to professional Six Sigma practice. A further incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over thoroughness by skipping essential documentation and review stages directly contravenes the principles of good governance and quality assurance. Regulatory bodies often require comprehensive documentation to verify compliance and process integrity. Failing to provide this documentation can lead to significant penalties, reputational damage, and a loss of trust. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the project's objectives, the applicable quality management system, and any relevant regulatory mandates. It requires a commitment to following established procedures, even when under pressure. Professionals should always advocate for a data-driven, documented, and validated approach to process changes, ensuring that all steps are taken to guarantee quality, compliance, and sustainability. When faced with pressure to deviate, it is essential to communicate the risks associated with shortcuts and to seek consensus on the appropriate level of rigor. Question 8. Consider a scenario where a Six Sigma Green Belt project team member is consistently struggling to meet their assigned tasks and deadlines, impacting the project's timeline. The Green Belt, aware of the project's critical path and the need for timely completion, also recognizes the importance of adhering to company policies and any relevant employment regulations regarding employee performance management. What is the most appropriate course of action for the Green Belt to take? Option A. Assign the underperforming team member to less critical tasks and avoid giving them any further responsibilities on the project to prevent further delays. Option B. Initiate a formal performance improvement plan for the team member involving clear expectations, regular feedback, and documented support mechanisms, while also exploring potential reasons for the underperformance such as skill gaps or workload issues. Option C. Focus solely on reallocating the team member's tasks to other team members to ensure project deadlines are met, without directly addressing the individual's performance issues. Option D. Immediately escalate the issue to the team member's direct manager, requesting their removal from the project due to their inability to contribute effectively. The correct answer is B. Initiate a formal performance improvement plan for the team member, involving clear expectations, regular feedback, and documented support mechanisms, while also exploring potential reasons for the underperformance such as skill gaps or workload issues. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient project progress with the ethical and regulatory obligations to ensure all team members are treated fairly and have the necessary support. The Certified Six Sigma Green Belt certification, particularly when operating within a regulated industry, which is implied by the need for strict adherence to regulatory frameworks, demands a commitment to ethical conduct and compliance. The challenge lies in identifying and addressing potential issues that could lead to non-compliance or ethical breaches without derailing the project. The correct approach involves proactively identifying and addressing the underlying reasons for the team member's underperformance, focusing on support and development rather than immediate punitive measures. This aligns with regulatory frameworks that often mandate fair treatment of employees, provide for reasonable accommodations, and encourage performance improvement plans. Ethically, it reflects a commitment to team well-being and fostering a productive environment. By engaging in open communication, offering training, and exploring potential workload adjustments, the Green Belt practitioner demonstrates a commitment to both project success and individual employee welfare, which is a cornerstone of responsible project management in any regulated context. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reporting the underperformance, without attempting to understand or address the root cause, fails to meet regulatory expectations for due diligence and fair process. Many employment laws and ethical guidelines require employers to provide opportunities for improvement and to investigate potential contributing factors before taking disciplinary action. Another incorrect approach, which involves isolating the underperforming team member from key project activities, could be seen as discriminatory or retaliatory, potentially violating anti-discrimination laws and ethical codes of conduct that prohibit unfair exclusion or harassment. Furthermore, assuming the underperformance is due to a lack of effort without exploring other possibilities like skill gaps, personal issues, or unclear expectations is a failure of professional judgment and can lead to incorrect interventions. Professionals should adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes understanding the situation holistically. This involves gathering information, engaging in open and honest communication with the team member, consulting relevant company policies and any applicable regulatory guidelines concerning employee performance and support, and then developing a targeted plan. This plan should aim to resolve the performance issue while upholding ethical standards and regulatory compliance. Question 9. The assessment process reveals several potential Six Sigma projects, each with varying degrees of perceived impact and resource requirements. A green belt is tasked with recommending the most suitable project for initiation. Which of the following approaches best aligns with professional Six Sigma project selection criteria from a stakeholder perspective? Option A. Choose the project that is most familiar to the green belt and appears to have the fewest technical challenges, ensuring a higher likelihood of personal success and a smoother project execution. Option B. Select the project that offers the most immediate and visible cost savings, as this will quickly demonstrate the value of Six Sigma to senior management and secure future support. Option C. Focus on projects where the data is already readily available and easily accessible, as this will expedite the project initiation phase and allow for quicker progress reporting. Option D. Prioritize projects that align directly with the organization's stated strategic goals and have a clear, measurable impact on key performance indicators, while also considering stakeholder buy-in and resource feasibility. The correct answer is B. Select the project that offers the most immediate and visible cost savings, as this will quickly demonstrate the value of Six Sigma to senior management and secure future support. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the strategic objectives of the organization with the practical realities and potential impacts on various stakeholders. Six Sigma Green Belt must select projects that not only align with business goals, but also offer tangible benefits and are feasible within resource constraints. The challenge lies in objectively evaluating multiple potential projects against established criteria, ensuring that the chosen project is the most impactful and justifiable. Careful judgment is required to avoid selecting projects based on personal preference, perceived ease, or incomplete information, which could lead to wasted resources and missed opportunities. The correct approach involves a systematic evaluation of potential projects against predefined objective criteria that reflect the organization's strategic priorities, financial goals, and operational needs. This typically includes assessing the potential for measurable improvement, e.g., cost savings, defect reduction, cycle time improvement, alignment with strategic objectives, stakeholder buy-in, resource availability, and risk assessment. By prioritizing projects that demonstrate the highest potential for return on investment and strategic alignment, the organization maximizes the value derived from its Six Sigma initiatives. This aligns with ethical principles of responsible resource allocation and professional duty to achieve organizational objectives effectively. An approach that focuses solely on projects with readily available data, without considering their strategic importance or potential impact, is professionally unacceptable. This failure to align with strategic objectives means resources may be directed towards initiatives that do not contribute to the organization's overarching goals, leading to inefficiency and a lack of demonstrable value. An approach that prioritizes projects based on the personal interest or perceived ease of the project leader, without objective evaluation against established criteria, is also professionally unacceptable. This introduces bias and subjectivity, potentially leading to the selection of less impactful projects and undermining the credibility of the Six Sigma program. It fails to uphold the professional responsibility to select projects based on merit and organizational benefit. an approach that neglects to consider the availability of necessary resources, personnel, budget, equipment for a project, even if it appears strategically important, is professionally flawed. This can lead to project initiation and subsequent failure due to insurmountable resource constraints, resulting in wasted time and effort and a negative perception of Six Sigma. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence in project planning. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a structured project selection framework. This framework should include 1. Clearly defined strategic objectives and key performance indicators, KPI. 2. A set of objective project selection criteria. 3. A mechanism for gathering input from relevant stakeholders. 4. A scoring or ranking system to objectively compare potential projects against the criteria. And 5. A review and approval process involving leadership. This systematic approach ensures that project selection is data-driven, aligned with organizational goals, and defensible to all stakeholders. Question 10. The investigation demonstrates that a Six Sigma Green Belt candidate is tasked with defining the scope for a process improvement project. The candidate is considering several approaches to ensure the project's boundaries are clearly established and managed. Which approach best aligns with the principles of professional project management and Six Sigma methodology, particularly in mitigating potential risks associated with scope definition? Option A. Prioritize initial stakeholder requests and document them as the project scope, assuming that all needs will be met within the initial understanding. Option B. Rely on informal discussions and assumptions with key team members to establish the project's boundaries without formal documentation or risk analysis. Option C. Define the scope very narrowly to guarantee a quick project completion, even if it means not fully addressing the underlying process issues. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential areas of scope ambiguity or creep, and develop proactive mitigation strategies to maintain focus. Correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify potential areas of scope ambiguity or creep, and develop proactive mitigation strategies to maintain focus. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because defining project scope is a foundational element of any Six Sigma project, and inaccuracies here can lead to significant wasted resources, stakeholder dissatisfaction, and failure to achieve desired outcomes. The Certified Six Sigma Green Belt certification emphasizes adherence to established methodologies and ethical conduct, which includes ensuring project objectives are clearly defined and agreed upon. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for a comprehensive scope with the practicalities of project execution. The correct approach involves a systematic risk assessment of potential scope creep and ambiguity. This means proactively identifying areas where the project's boundaries might become unclear or expand beyond the original intent. By documenting these risks and developing mitigation strategies, the Green Belt ensures that the project remains focused and manageable. This aligns with the ethical obligation to deliver value efficiently and effectively, and the regulatory expectation, within the context of professional certifications and organizational governance, that projects are undertaken with due diligence and foresight. A well-defined scope, informed by risk assessment, prevents misallocation of resources and ensures that the project delivers on its intended benefits, a core tenet of responsible project management and Six Sigma principles. An approach that focuses solely on initial stakeholder requests without a formal risk assessment is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of proactive risk management, which is a key component of sound project governance. It can lead to uncontrolled scope expansion, exceeding budget and timeline, and ultimately failing to meet the original objectives. This demonstrates a disregard for efficient resource utilization and stakeholder trust, potentially violating implicit ethical obligations to manage projects responsibly. Another incorrect approach is to define the scope narrowly to ensure quick completion, without considering the full breadth of the problem or potential solutions. This can lead to a project that is technically successful but fails to address the root cause or deliver meaningful business impact. Ethically, this can be seen as a failure to fully commit to the project's purpose and deliver the intended value, potentially misleading stakeholders about the project's ultimate benefit. Finally, an approach that relies on informal agreements and assumptions about scope, rather than documented definitions and risk assessments, is also professionally flawed. This lack of formalization creates ambiguity and increases the likelihood of misunderstandings and disputes later in the project. It violates the principle of clear communication and accountability, which are fundamental to ethical project execution and professional conduct. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach to scope definition. This includes engaging all relevant stakeholders, clearly documenting project objectives, deliverables, and exclusions, and critically, conducting a thorough risk assessment to anticipate and mitigate potential scope-related issues. This proactive and documented approach ensures clarity, accountability, and a higher probability of project success, aligning with both ethical responsibilities and the rigorous standards expected of a certified Six Sigma Green Belt. Question 11. The analysis reveals that a Six Sigma Green Belt project aimed at improving customer onboarding efficiency in a U.S.-based financial institution has identified potential benefits including reduced processing time, decreased error rates, and enhanced customer satisfaction. When reporting these benefits to management and potentially for broader organizational awareness, which approach best aligns with regulatory compliance and ethical reporting standards? Option A. Emphasizing the reduction in processing time and error rates as definitive proof of success, while downplaying or omitting any discussion of customer satisfaction or potential future financial impacts to avoid any perception of speculation. Option B. Focusing primarily on the successful implementation of Six Sigma tools and methodologies, emphasizing the achievement of project milestones and the adoption of new processes, with only a brief mention of potential, unquantified benefits. Option C. Highlighting projected significant cost savings and revenue increases based on optimistic assumptions about future customer acquisition and retention, without providing detailed data to support these projections. Option D. Presenting a comprehensive report detailing the measured improvements in processing time and error rates, supported by pre- and post-implementation data, and qualitative feedback on customer satisfaction, while acknowledging any assumptions made in quantifying intangible benefits. The correct answer is D. Presenting a comprehensive report detailing the measured improvements in processing time and error rates, supported by pre- and post-implementation data, and qualitative feedback on customer satisfaction, while acknowledging any assumptions made in quantifying intangible benefits. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a Six Sigma Green Belt to balance the pursuit of process improvement benefits with the strict adherence to regulatory compliance, specifically within the framework of U.S. regulations governing financial services. The core challenge lies in ensuring that the documented benefits of Six Sigma initiatives are not overstated or misleading, which could have implications for regulatory reporting and investor confidence. Correct approach involves accurately quantifying and reporting the benefits of Six Sigma projects, focusing on measurable improvements that align with established business objectives and are verifiable. This approach is ethically sound and compliant with U.S. regulations, such as those enforced by the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) and the Sarbanes-Oxley Act (SOX). These regulations mandate accurate financial reporting and prohibit misleading statements. By focusing on verifiable, data-driven benefits, the Green Belt upholds principles of transparency and integrity, which are paramount in regulated industries. An incorrect approach that exaggerates or speculates on benefits without concrete evidence is ethically problematic and poses significant regulatory risks. Such an approach could be construed as misleading investors or stakeholders, violating principles of fair disclosure. For instance, claiming projected cost savings that are not based on robust data or realistic assumptions could lead to inaccurate financial projections, which is a direct contravention of SEC rules on forward-looking statements and SOX requirements for internal controls over financial reporting. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes achieving Six Sigma certification or project completion over the actual, demonstrable impact on the business fails to recognize the fundamental purpose of Six Sigma within a regulated environment. While process improvement is the goal, the benefits must be tangible and contribute to the organization's overall health and compliance. Focusing solely on the methodology without a clear link to measurable, positive outcomes can lead to wasted resources and a failure to meet the underlying business and regulatory expectations for efficiency and risk reduction. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes data integrity, regulatory adherence, and ethical conduct. This involves 1. clearly defining project scope and measurable objectives aligned with business needs and regulatory requirements. 2. Employing rigorous data collection and analysis methods to quantify benefits. 3. Seeking validation from relevant stakeholders, including compliance and finance departments, before reporting benefits. 4. Maintaining transparency and honesty in all communications regarding project outcomes, ensuring that claims are supported by evidence and are not misleading. Question 12. Operational review demonstrates that a Six Sigma Green Belt project aimed at improving a manufacturing process is encountering resistance from the shop floor operators due to a perceived lack of clarity regarding the project's goals and their role in the changes. The project team has been primarily communicating through technical reports shared with management. What is the most effective project communication strategy to address this situation and ensure broader stakeholder engagement? Option A. Develop and implement a comprehensive communication plan that includes regular, accessible updates for all stakeholder groups, utilizing a mix of visual aids, team meetings, and sessions tailored to the operator's understanding, alongside continued technical reporting for management. Option B. Continue to provide detailed technical reports to management, assuming they will cascade the necessary information to the operational teams. Option C. Focus all communication efforts on the project sponsor and senior leadership, as they are the ultimate decision makers and can mandate compliance. Option D. Schedule a single, all-hands meeting to present the project's technical findings and expected changes, followed by a period of silence until the next major milestone. The correct answer is A. Develop and implement a comprehensive communication plan that includes regular, accessible updates for all stakeholder groups, utilizing a mix of visual aids, team meetings, and sessions tailored to the operator's understanding, alongside continued technical reporting for management. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because effective project communication is crucial for Six Sigma Green Belt projects, which often involve cross-functional teams and stakeholders with varying levels of understanding of the project's technical details and objectives. Miscommunication can lead to scope creep, resistance to change, wasted resources, and ultimately project failure. The challenge lies in tailoring communication to different audiences while ensuring accuracy, transparency, and adherence to project governance. The correct approach involves a proactive and structured communication plan that identifies key stakeholders, their information needs, preferred communication channels, and the frequency of updates. This plan should be developed early in the project lifecycle and regularly reviewed. For a Six Sigma Green Belt project operating within a regulated environment, assuming a general business context without specific jurisdiction mentioned, thus adhering to general professional best practices and ethical conduct expected in such roles. This approach aligns with principles of good governance, transparency, and accountability. It ensures that all relevant parties are informed, can provide input, and understand the project's impact, thereby fostering buy-in and facilitating smoother implementation. This proactive strategy minimizes risks associated with information silos and misunderstandings, which is paramount in any professional setting. An incorrect approach would be to rely solely on informal updates or to assume that all stakeholders have the same level of technical understanding and interest. This can lead to critical information being missed by key decision-makers or operational staff, resulting in a lack of support or unexpected roadblocks. Another incorrect approach is to over-communicate with excessive technical jargon, alienating stakeholders who are not directly involved in the technical aspects of the project. This can create confusion and disengagement. Finally, a reactive communication strategy, where information is only shared when problems arise, is also professionally unsound. It erodes trust and suggests a lack of control or foresight, potentially leading to reputational damage and increased scrutiny from management or regulatory bodies if applicable. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding the audience, defining clear communication objectives, selecting appropriate methods, and establishing feedback mechanisms. This involves active listening, empathy, and a commitment to clarity and honesty in all project communications. Question 13. To address the challenge of developing a new pharmaceutical product that meets stringent efficacy and safety standards, a Six Sigma Green Belt is leading a cross-functional team. The team is in the initial stages of the project, which approach best aligns with the DMAV methodology for ensuring a robust and compliant design from the outset. Option A. Focus exclusively on the technical feasibility of novel chemical compounds and initiate pilot manufacturing runs to assess production scalability, deferring detailed customer requirement gathering until after initial prototypes are developed. Option B. Begin by thoroughly defining the project's strategic goals, identifying critical to quality (CTQ) characteristics from the customer's perspective, and establishing measurable requirements that will guide the entire development process. Option C. Immediately commence detailed technical design specifications and begin laboratory testing to confirm the product's chemical stability, assuming efficacy and safety will be addressed in later stages. Option D. Rely on existing internal research data and anecdotal feedback from sales representatives to define product requirements, and proceed directly to the design phase without formal customer validation or risk assessment. The correct answer is B. Begin by thoroughly defining the project's strategic goals, identifying critical to quality (CTQ) characteristics from the customer's perspective, and establishing measurable requirements that will guide the entire development process. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a Six Sigma green belt to navigate the initial stages of a new product development process while adhering to the DMAV methodology and relevant regulatory frameworks. The core challenge lies in ensuring that the design phase is robust and validated before significant resources are committed, thereby minimizing risks and ensuring compliance. Careful judgment is required to select the most appropriate approach that aligns with the DMAV framework and avoids premature assumptions or inadequate validation. The correct approach involves meticulously defining the project goals and customer requirements in the define phase, followed by establishing measurable metrics and baseline performance in the measure phase. The subsequent analyze phase focuses on identifying root causes of potential issues and exploring design alternatives. Crucially, the design phase then develops a detailed design based on the analysis, and the verify phase rigorously tests and validates this design against the defined requirements and customer needs. This systematic progression ensures that the product is designed to meet specifications and regulatory standards from the outset, which is a fundamental principle of quality management and risk mitigation. In the context of a regulated industry, assuming a hypothetical U.S. regulatory framework for this example, such as FDA guidelines for medical devices or EPA regulations for environmental products, this structured approach directly supports compliance by ensuring that design inputs are clearly documented, design outputs are traceable, and validation activities confirm that the design meets all intended uses and regulatory requirements. This proactive approach minimizes the likelihood of noncompliance discovered late in the process, which can lead to costly redesigns, product recalls, and reputational damage. An incorrect approach that prematurely moves to detailed design without thorough customer requirement definition and analysis of potential failure modes would be professionally unacceptable. This bypasses critical steps in the DMAV framework, increasing the risk of designing a product that does not meet customer needs or regulatory standards. Ethically, it represents a failure to exercise due diligence in product development. From a regulatory perspective, it could lead to a design that cannot be validated against required specifications, potentially violating regulations that mandate robust design controls and validation. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on technical feasibility without adequately considering customer requirements or regulatory constraints would also be professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of holistic thinking, failing to integrate market needs and compliance obligations into the design process. Such an approach risks creating a technically sound but commercially unviable or non-compliant product, leading to significant business and legal repercussions. A third incorrect approach that relies heavily on assumptions and historical data without rigorous data collection and analysis in the measure and analyze phases would be professionally unacceptable. This undermines the data-driven nature of Six Sigma and DMAV. It increases the probability of making design decisions based on flawed information, leading to a design that is not optimized or may contain unforeseen defects, thus failing to meet the rigorous standards expected in regulated environments and potentially violating principles of good manufacturing practices or product stewardship. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the DMAD methodology and its sequential nature. Professionals must prioritize thoroughness in each phase, ensuring that all inputs and analyses are complete before proceeding to the next. This involves actively engaging stakeholders, including customers and regulatory experts, throughout the process. A risk-based approach should be employed, identifying potential challenges early and developing mitigation strategies. Finally, maintaining comprehensive documentation at each stage is crucial for demonstrating compliance and facilitating future reviews or audits. Question 14. The review process indicates that a Six Sigma Green Belt project team is collecting employee feedback to identify areas for process improvement. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory requirements and ethical considerations for handling voice of the employee (VO) data? Option A. Collect feedback through informal conversations and anecdotal evidence, without a structured process for recording or analyzing the data, relying on the team's general understanding of employee sentiment. Option B. Implement a system where all feedback is directly linked to individual employee records, allowing for performance evaluations and targeted coaching based on specific comments. Option C. Focus solely on feedback from supervisors and managers, as they are considered more objective and knowledgeable about operational challenges, disregarding direct employee input that may be perceived as complaints. Option D. Establish anonymous feedback channels and use aggregated, anonymized data to identify systemic issues and trends for process improvement, with clear communication to employees about how their feedback is used. Correct answer is B. Implement a system where all feedback is directly linked to individual employee records, allowing for performance evaluations and targeted coaching based on specific comments. Explanation. The review process indicates a potential gap in understanding how to effectively capture and act upon the voice of the employee (VO) within a regulated environment, specifically concerning data privacy and fair treatment. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for operational improvement through employee feedback with strict adherence to data protection laws and ethical employment practices. Misinterpreting or mishandling VOE data can lead to legal repercussions, damage employee trust, and undermine the integrity of Six Sigma initiatives. Careful judgment is required to ensure that feedback mechanisms are compliant, transparent, and lead to actionable improvements without compromising individual rights or creating a perception of unfairness. The correct approach involves establishing clear, anonymized channels for feedback, ensuring that any aggregated data used for process improvement does not identify individuals, and that follow-up actions are based on systemic issues rather than singling out employees. This aligns with the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation often found in data protection regulations, such as the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. If this were a UK/CISI context, or similar principles under US privacy laws. Ethically, it upholds the trust employees place in the organization to handle their concerns responsibly and without retribution. An approach that involves directly linking specific employee feedback to performance reviews or disciplinary actions is ethically unsound and likely violates employment laws and data protection regulations. It creates a climate of fear, discourages honest feedback, and can be construed as retaliatory. This failure stems from a lack of understanding of data privacy principles, specifically the right to privacy and the prohibition of processing personal data for purposes other than those for which it was collected, without consent or a legitimate legal basis. Another incorrect approach is to ignore or dismiss feedback that highlights negative experiences or systemic problems, especially if it comes from a specific department or team. This not only fails to leverage the VOE for improvement, but also can be seen as a failure to provide a safe and supportive work environment, potentially violating workplace regulations or internal codes of conduct. It demonstrates a lack of commitment to continuous improvement and employee well-being. A third incorrect approach is to collect feedback without any plan to act upon it or communicate back to employees about the actions taken. This leads to cynicism and disengagement, rendering the VOE initiative ineffective and potentially violating principles of transparency and fairness in how employee input is valued and utilized. It suggests a superficial engagement with employee concerns. Professionals should approach VOE initiatives by first understanding the relevant legal and ethical frameworks governing data collection and employee relations in their jurisdiction. This involves designing feedback mechanisms that prioritize anonymity and data security, clearly communicating the purpose of feedback collection, and establishing robust processes for analyzing aggregated data and implementing improvements. Transparency in how feedback is used and a commitment to acting on identified issues are crucial for building trust and ensuring the success of Six Sigma projects. Question 15. What factors determine the ethical and professional approach when integrating lean principles to streamline processes that are already governed by Six Sigma quality standards, particularly concerning the potential impact on product defect rates and customer satisfaction? Option A. The adoption of lean methodologies solely based on their popularity in industry, irrespective of their compatibility with existing Six Sigma quality frameworks. Option B. The subjective opinion of the team leader regarding the overall efficiency gains without formal quality impact assessment. Option C. The perceived speed of implementation and the potential for immediate cost savings identified through lean waste reduction techniques. Option D. The extent to which proposed lean changes are rigorously validated against Six Sigma quality metrics and customer-critical quality characteristics before implementation. The correct answer is D. The extent to which proposed lean changes are rigorously validated against Six Sigma quality metrics and customer-critical quality characteristics before implementation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the pursuit of efficiency gains through lean principles with the ethical imperative to maintain product quality and customer trust, all within the framework of Six Sigma Green Belt responsibilities. The Green Belt is tasked with identifying and implementing improvements, but must do so without compromising established quality standards or potentially misleading stakeholders about the true impact of changes. Careful judgment is needed to ensure that lean tools, such as value stream mapping or waste reduction, are applied in a way that enhances, rather than degrades, the Six Sigma-driven quality objectives. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of how proposed lean integrations will affect key Six Sigma metrics and customer satisfaction. This means validating that any reduction in process steps or cycle time does not introduce new defects or negatively impact critical to quality (CTQ) characteristics. The ethical justification lies in transparency and data-driven decision-making, by ensuring that lean initiatives are rigorously tested against Six Sigma standards and that any potential quality trade-offs are understood and mitigated. The Green Belt upholds professional integrity and avoids actions that could lead to customer dissatisfaction or regulatory scrutiny if product quality were to decline. This aligns with the Six Sigma principle of focusing on customer requirements and the ethical obligation to deliver reliable products and services. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize speed or cost reduction from lean principles without adequately measuring or controlling the impact on quality. This could manifest as implementing a leaner process that, while faster, introduces subtle defects or inconsistencies that are not immediately apparent, but could lead to customer complaints or product failures over time. The ethical failure here is a lack of due diligence and potential for misrepresentation if the perceived benefits of lean are overstated without acknowledging the quality risks. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss Six Sigma's data-driven quality focus in favor of purely qualitative lean observations. This ignores the fundamental purpose of Six Sigma, which is to reduce variation and defects, and could lead to decisions based on anecdotal evidence rather than empirical data, risking a decline in product reliability and customer trust. Ethically, this demonstrates a disregard for established quality management principles and a failure to act in the best interest of the customer and the organization's reputation. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that integrates lean and Six Sigma by first clearly defining the problem and desired outcomes, ensuring that quality objectives from Six Sigma are paramount. Then, lean tools should be applied to identify waste and opportunities for improvement, but any proposed changes must be rigorously evaluated through the Six Sigma lens, using data to predict and measure their impact on quality and customer satisfaction. This involves pilot testing, statistical analysis, and a clear understanding of CTQs. Transparency with stakeholders about potential risks and benefits, supported by data, is crucial throughout the process. Question 16. Stakeholder feedback indicates that the proposed project charter for a process improvement initiative may not fully capture the nuances of customer interaction points, potentially leading to a solution that addresses the wrong problem. The project team is considering several ways to proceed with the charter development. Option A. Postpone the detailed discussion of customer interaction points until after the project charter is approved, to avoid delaying the project timeline. Option B. Revise the project charter to include a more detailed mapping of customer interaction points, incorporating specific examples and potential pain points identified by stakeholders, and then seek formal sign-off. Option C. Proceed with the current draft of the project charter, assuming that the core objectives are sound, and that any minor discrepancies in customer interaction can be addressed during the execution phase. Option D. Selectively incorporate only the stakeholder feedback that aligns with the team's initial understanding of the problem, dismissing feedback that suggests a broader or different scope. The correct answer is B. Revise the project charter to include a more detailed mapping of customer interaction points, incorporating specific examples and potential pain points identified by stakeholders, and then seek formal sign-off. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for project clarity and scope definition with the imperative to incorporate diverse stakeholder perspectives early in the project lifecycle. Misinterpreting or dismissing stakeholder feedback during project charter development can lead to scope creep, resistance, and ultimately project failure. Careful judgment is required to discern actionable feedback from mere suggestions and to ensure the charter accurately reflects agreed-upon objectives and boundaries. The correct approach involves actively soliciting, documenting, and integrating relevant stakeholder feedback into the project charter. This ensures that the project's objectives, scope, and deliverables are aligned with the needs and expectations of all key parties. This aligns with the principles of good governance and project management best practices, which emphasize stakeholder engagement as a critical success factor. While specific Six Sigma Green Belt regulations are not explicitly detailed in a separate regulatory framework, the underlying principles of data-driven decision-making and customer focus inherent in Six Sigma implicitly support this inclusive approach. By incorporating feedback, the charter becomes a more robust and agreed-upon document, reducing ambiguity and fostering buy-in. An incorrect approach that dismisses feedback as noise fails to acknowledge the value of diverse perspectives and the potential for critical insights that could prevent future problems. This can lead to a charter that does not adequately address stakeholder concerns, resulting in resistance, lack of support, and potential scope disputes later in the project. Ethically, it represents a failure to engage stakeholders appropriately. Another incorrect approach that selectively incorporates only feedback that supports pre-existing assumptions ignores the possibility that stakeholder input might reveal flaws in the initial project design. This can lead to a biased charter that does not reflect the true needs of the project or its stakeholders, potentially causing misalignment and dissatisfaction. This approach lacks objectivity and can undermine the integrity of the project planning process. A further incorrect approach that delays addressing feedback until after the charter is finalized misses a crucial opportunity to shape the project's direction proactively. This can result in significant rework, increased costs, and delays as issues are identified and addressed reactively rather than proactively. It also signals a lack of respect for stakeholder input and can damage relationships. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves establishing clear channels for stakeholder feedback early in the project. This includes defining what constitutes actionable feedback, how it will be reviewed and incorporated, and communicating these processes to stakeholders. When faced with conflicting feedback, a structured approach to analysis and prioritization, often involving a review of project objectives and constraints, is necessary. The goal is to achieve consensus and ensure the project charter is a realistic, comprehensive, and agreed-upon document that sets the project up for success. Question 17. The control framework reveals a Six Sigma Green Belt has identified that a key team member, who is also a strong advocate for a particular solution, has a significant personal investment in a supplier that would benefit from the proposed project outcome. What is the most appropriate course of action for the Green Belt to ensure the integrity of the Six Sigma project? Option A. The Green Belt should ignore the potential conflict of interest, assuming it will not influence the team member's contributions to the project. Option B. The green belt should document the potential conflict of interest and escalate it to the project sponsor and relevant stakeholders for guidance and potential mitigation. Option C. The green belt should discreetly advise the team member to withdraw from the project to avoid any appearance of impropriety. Option D. The green belt should allow the team member to continue leading decision-making processes, trusting their professional judgment to remain objective. The correct answer is B. The green belt should document the potential conflict of interest and escalate it to the project sponsor and relevant stakeholders for guidance and potential mitigation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a Six Sigma green belt to navigate potential conflicts of interest and ensure that project decisions are driven by objective data and process improvement goals, rather than personal or departmental biases. Maintaining the integrity of the Six Sigma methodology and adhering to its principles of data-driven decision-making is paramount. The green belt must act as an impartial facilitator, ensuring that the project remains focused on achieving the defined objectives and delivering tangible benefits to the organization. The correct approach involves the green belt proactively identifying and documenting potential conflicts of interest, then escalating these concerns to the project sponsor and relevant stakeholders. This ensures transparency and allows for appropriate mitigation strategies to be implemented, such as recusal from specific decision-making processes or seeking independent validation of data. This approach aligns with the ethical principles of Six Sigma, which emphasize objectivity, integrity, and a commitment to the overall success of the project and the organization. By addressing conflicts of interest upfront, the green belt upholds the credibility of the Six Sigma initiative and fosters trust among team members and stakeholders. An incorrect approach would be to ignore or downplay the potential conflict of interest. This failure to address the issue directly creates an environment where decisions could be perceived as biased, undermining the credibility of the green belt and the Six Sigma project. It violates the ethical imperative for objectivity and could lead to suboptimal project outcomes if decisions are influenced by factors other than data and process improvement. Another incorrect approach is to allow the individual with the conflict of interest to continue leading critical decision-making processes without any oversight or mitigation. This not only compromises the integrity of the project, but also exposes the organization to potential risks if decisions are not based on sound, unbiased analysis. It demonstrates a lack of professional judgment and a disregard for the principles of good governance and ethical conduct within a Six Sigma framework. Professionals should adopt a proactive and transparent approach when encountering potential conflicts of interest. This involves early identification, open communication with the project sponsor and relevant parties, and a commitment to implementing appropriate safeguards to ensure objectivity and fairness. The decision-making process should always prioritize data-driven insights and the achievement of project objectives, free from undue influence. Question 18. The control framework reveals that a Six Sigma Green Belt candidate is evaluating several potential projects for their charter. Which approach best demonstrates adherence to regulatory and ethical principles in project selection and charter development? Option A. Developing a project charter that clearly articulates the project's strategic alignment, defines measurable objectives, identifies key stakeholders, and specifies the allocated resources and timeline, following a thorough evaluation of feasibility and impact. Option B. Selecting a project that is strongly supported by a single department, even if its strategic alignment with overall organizational goals is unclear and resource commitments are tentative. Option C. Creating a project charter with vague objectives and deliverables to allow for maximum flexibility during project execution, regardless of resource constraints. Option D. Prioritizing a project based on the perceived urgency by a vocal stakeholder group, without a formal assessment of its strategic contribution or resource availability. The correct answer is B. Selecting a project that is strongly supported by a single department, even if its strategic alignment with overall organizational goals is unclear and resource commitments are tentative. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because a Six Sigma Green Belt candidate must balance the strategic alignment of a project with the practical constraints of resource availability and the ethical imperative to avoid misrepresenting project scope or potential impact. Careful judgment is required to ensure the project charter accurately reflects the project's objectives, deliverables, and the resources committed, thereby preventing scope creep and ensuring accountability. The correct approach involves meticulously documenting the project's alignment with organizational strategic goals, clearly defining the problem statement, outlining measurable objectives, identifying key stakeholders, and specifying the available resources and timelines within the project charter. This aligns with the principles of effective project management and Six Sigma methodology, which emphasize data-driven decision-making and clear communication. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, a well-defined charter serves as a foundational document that ensures transparency, accountability, and responsible use of organizational resources. It prevents the initiation of projects that are not strategically viable or adequately resourced, thereby upholding professional integrity and fiduciary duty to the organization. An approach that prioritizes a project solely based on the enthusiasm of a single department, without a thorough assessment of its strategic fit or resource implications, is professionally unacceptable. This failure can lead to wasted resources, project delays, and a lack of buy-in from other critical departments, potentially violating ethical guidelines related to responsible resource allocation and organizational efficiency. Another incorrect approach involves creating a project charter that exaggerates potential benefits or downplays resource requirements to secure project approval. This is ethically unsound as it constitutes misrepresentation and can lead to unrealistic expectations, ultimately undermining the credibility of the Six Sigma initiative and the Green Belt professional. It violates the principle of honesty and transparency in professional conduct. Finally, an approach that neglects to clearly define the project's scope and deliverables in the charter, leaving these aspects open to interpretation, is also professionally flawed. This ambiguity can lead to scope creep, disputes among stakeholders, and an inability to effectively measure project success, thereby failing to meet the fundamental requirements of a robust project charter and potentially leading to inefficient or ineffective project execution. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the organization's strategic objectives. Project proposals should then be evaluated against these objectives, considering their potential impact, feasibility, and resource requirements. The project charter should be developed collaboratively, ensuring all stakeholders are aligned on the project's purpose, scope, objectives, and resource commitments. This process fosters transparency, accountability, and a higher likelihood of successful project completion, adhering to ethical standards of professional practice. Question 19. Market research demonstrates that organizations implementing Six Sigma often utilize yellow belts to identify and address minor process inefficiencies. When reporting on the success of green belt projects, what is the most ethically and regulatorily sound approach to acknowledging the contributions of yellow belts? Option A. Exaggerate the impact of yellow belt contributions to make green belt projects appear more successful and to justify the existence of the yellow belt program. Option B. Broadly attribute all process improvements identified and implemented within green belt projects to the green belt, regardless of yellow belt involvement. Option C. Accurately document and report the specific contributions and impact of yellow belts within the scope of green belt projects, ensuring transparency and proper attribution. Option D. Exclude any mention of yellow belt involvement in project reports to maintain a focus on the green belt's leadership and achievements. The correct answer is C. Accurately document and report the specific contributions and impact of yellow belts within the scope of green belt projects, ensuring transparency and proper attribution. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for efficient process improvement with the ethical and regulatory obligations to ensure data integrity and accurate representation of results. The certified Six Sigma Green Belt framework, particularly when operating within a regulated industry, assuming a U.S. context for this example, as no specific jurisdiction was provided, but adhering to general principles applicable to regulated environments, mandates a commitment to truthfulness and the avoidance of misleading information. The core of the challenge lies in the potential for misrepresenting the scope and impact of a yellow belt's contribution, which could have downstream consequences for decision-making, resource allocation, and even compliance if the reported improvements are not substantiated. The correct approach involves clearly delineating the scope of work and the level of contribution for yellow belts, ensuring that any reported successes are accurately attributed, and that the data supporting these successes is robust and verifiable. This aligns with the Six Sigma principle of data-driven decision-making and the ethical imperative to be transparent. In a regulated environment, this also supports compliance with regulations that require accurate record-keeping and reporting of operational performance. By focusing on the accurate representation of yellow belt contributions, the organization upholds its commitment to integrity and avoids potential misinterpretations that could lead to flawed strategic choices or regulatory scrutiny. An incorrect approach that involves broadly attributing all process improvements to green belt projects, regardless of yellow belt involvement, fails to acknowledge the contributions of individuals at different levels of the Six Sigma hierarchy. This can lead to an inaccurate understanding of the organization's improvement capabilities and can demotivate individuals who have contributed significantly. Ethically, it is a misrepresentation of effort and achievement. Another incorrect approach, which is to inflate the impact of yellow belt contributions to make projects appear more successful than they are, is a direct violation of ethical principles and potentially regulatory requirements for accurate reporting. This practice undermines the credibility of the Six Sigma program and can lead to decisions based on false premises. It is a form of data manipulation, which is unacceptable in any professional setting, especially in regulated industries. A third incorrect approach, which is to exclude yellow belt contributions entirely from project reporting, overlooks the foundational role they often play in identifying issues and implementing initial solutions. This not only demotivates yellow belts, but also provides an incomplete picture of the organization's improvement efforts, potentially hindering further development and recognition of talent. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the roles and responsibilities within the Six Sigma framework, as defined by the organization's internal guidelines and relevant industry standards. It requires a commitment to transparency and accuracy in reporting. When evaluating contributions, professionals should ask, is this representation of effort and outcome truthful and verifiable? And does this reporting align with our ethical obligations and any applicable regulatory requirements for data integrity? This involves seeking clarity on how contributions at different levels are to be documented and reported, ensuring that all efforts are appropriately recognized without exaggeration or omission. Question 20. Benchmark analysis indicates that a Six Sigma Green Belt team needs to thoroughly understand customer needs for a new product development initiative. The team has limited time and budget, but must ensure the insights gathered are representative and actionable. Which approach best balances these constraints while adhering to ethical data collection principles? Option A. Organize multiple online focus groups with customers, encouraging open discussion to uncover their needs and pain points. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive online survey distributed to the entire customer database, supplemented by a series of in-depth one-on-one interviews with a diverse sample of customers. Option C. Engage in informal, ad hoc conversations with a few long-standing and influential clients to gauge their opinions on potential product features. Option D. Distribute a detailed online survey to a broad segment of the customer base and rely solely on the aggregated quantitative data for insights. Correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive online survey distributed to the entire customer database, supplemented by a series of in-depth one-on-one interviews with a diverse sample of customers. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a Six Sigma Green Belt to balance the need for comprehensive customer understanding with the practical constraints of time and resources, while adhering to ethical data collection practices. The chosen method must accurately reflect customer needs without introducing bias or compromising privacy. The correct approach involves using a combination of structured surveys and in-depth interviews. Structured surveys allow for the collection of quantifiable data from a broad customer base, providing statistical insights into common needs and preferences. In-depth interviews, on the other hand, offer qualitative data, allowing for a deeper understanding of the nuances, motivations, and unspoken needs of a smaller, representative sample of customers. This mixed methods approach provides a robust and triangulated view of customer requirements, minimizing the risk of overlooking critical insights or misinterpreting general trends. Ethically, this approach respects customer time by offering different levels of engagement and ensures that data collected is relevant to the project's objectives. Focusing solely on online surveys, while efficient for broad reach, risks superficial understanding and may miss the depth of customer needs due to the lack of interactive probing. This could lead to a misallocation of resources based on incomplete or misinterpreted data, failing the ethical obligation to serve customer interests effectively. Relying exclusively on focus groups, though rich in qualitative data, can be susceptible to groupthink and may not represent the broader customer base accurately. The opinions of more vocal participants can disproportionately influence the outcomes, leading to biased insights and potentially alienating less assertive customer segments. This introduces an ethical concern of not representing all customer voices fairly. Conducting informal, ad hoc conversations with a few key clients, while seemingly efficient, lacks structure and rigor. This approach is highly prone to personal bias and anecdotal evidence, making it unreliable for strategic decision-making and failing to meet the ethical standard of objective data-driven analysis. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a systematic and unbiased approach to customer needs assessment. This involves clearly defining project objectives, identifying the target customer segments, and then selecting the most appropriate data collection methods that align with these objectives and segments, considering both breadth and depth of information required. A critical step is to pilot test chosen methods to identify and mitigate potential biases before full deployment. Finally, data analysis should involve triangulation of findings from different methods to ensure a comprehensive and accurate understanding of customer needs.